What is up, OG5? First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support for what we're doing over here at Digital 410 Media. Whether you're supporting the YouTube channel, the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, the What's in Your Head podcast, the Failed to Fail podcast, or the Tackle Your Personal Best podcast, we cannot do it here without you. Because of you, you guys help us in making things get done. But enough of that. Now it's time for what you're really tuning in for, and that is the first Patreon prize pack pick. That's a mouthful. And today is the first one. This month we're doing two giveaways, one tonight and one at the end of the month. And we want to thank our sponsor over at Warbird Coffee. They are providing us with 2 bags of coffee. And tonight's winner will get the pick between the two. They get their choice of either the Warbird's Coffee P47 Thunderbolt or the Warbird's Coffee P51D Mustang. Their choice. First winner gets choice. We'll give the second bag away at the end of the month. But that's not it. They also get, can't have coffee without a mug, the new What's the Scuttlebutt podcast coffee mug. Now, I was going to do this video facing away like I normally do our podcast, but with the green mug, it blends into the green background and you can't see it. So look at this in all of its beauty and glory. You get that. You also get an autographed M block, autographed by Jeff Copsetta, Henry Sledge, and myself. I haven't signed it yet. That'll get done here shortly. And we're going to throw a few other prizes in there as well, but let's get to it. I printed up all the names. Thought it'd only be appropriate with the World War II theme that I put them in canteen. We got the names in there. I'm going to give it a shaky shake shake. Dump one out. Oh, okay. It's on the floor. And our first winner is, for this month, unwrap the little gobbledygoo here. And our winner is, been a member since November 19th of 2021. Mr. Thomas Ward. Thomas Ward, we will reach out to you through Patreon, get your address, make sure the address we have on file is up to date, give you the choice of which coffee you want, and we will mail the coffee, the mug, the M block, and a few other things your way. Thank you, Mr. Thomas Ward, member since November 19th, 2021. Thank you, sir, for all your years of support. I hope you enjoy the coffee. I know you will. It's good. Jeff loves it. I love it. Hope you enjoy the coffee mug, the autographed M block, and the stickers and other things we throw in there. So thank you guys so much, and if you didn't win, don't worry, we're doing another drawing at the end of the month, and we're going to do these drawings regularly. So thank you guys so much for your continued support, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Dodd Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II-based podcast. It's Monday night. We're all back. Some of us are back from vacation. Some of us are back from a super long fishing trip. And some of us are back from just a normal day of work, and we have a special guest with us. But joining us always from Texas is Jeff Copsetta. And, of course, one Mr. Henry Sledge. Gentlemen, how you all doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing good and outstanding. Well, we're going to get right to it, get down to brass tacks, if you will, without any further ado. Jeff, why don't you introduce our guest tonight, and let's get this bad boy rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the pleasure to meet this gentleman here, man, just a couple weeks ago. And well, I take that back. We had our paths had crossed, I guess, a couple years ago, and they finally found their way back because destiny, I guess, pulled us together and our love for World War II and keeping history alive. And he was lucky enough to come down here, and I was lucky enough to have him set up with our air show that we've been talking about here that we just hosted here at the Highland Lakes Air Museum a couple weeks ago. And so Mr. Scott Freund, was just generous enough to come down with a very small part of their display from the Liberty Jump team. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Not only is he an airborne reenactor, but the photography and videography that he collects is outstanding. I know that's something that Henry Sledge and some of Henry's cronies are going to really appreciate to hear about. So, Scott, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, yeah, real quick, I just kind of wanted to very quickly, let's gloss over your experience here, your first time coming through Highland Lakes Air Museum, your first time here at the Bluebonnet Air Show. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was excellent. We had a great time. The Liberty Jump Team, we wanted to help out different museums. So we're starting a museum tour. And so to come down there and work with you in the museum and the air show was a great honor for us. And we're really hoping that we're going to be able to come out there and jump out of a C-47 for you in late October. So it was a great experience.
That'll be awesome. So I guess for those who don't know what the Liberty Jump Team is, can you talk a little bit about that?
All right. In 2006, the mayor of Carentan, France, wanted to do something special for the anniversary of D-Day. So he wanted people to jump from a C-47. So the Liberty Jump Team was formed at that time, and they did a commemorative jump in Carentan, France. From there, it has just exploded for us. We jump all over France for D-Day. We're the only team that actually jumps on the original drop zones in France. So
Wow.
In 2019, we jumped on Saint-Germain-de-Verville, which hadn't been jumped on since 1944 by the paratroopers and pathfinders, actually. So we do that, Angleville, Amperville, Lafayette Bridge, which if you're into D-Day, you know that Lafayette is a major engagement. It is one of the most intense small unit fight ever in World War II. And so since that time, we've just been growing and growing, and we're the only civilian team that still jumps with the United States Army at Benning, Fort Bragg, and at Campbell. So the Week of Eagles. We travel all around the United States and Canada going to air shows. So it's just a great honor to do this, to remember the veterans and honor them by jumping from a C-47 dressed in M42 paratrooper equipment and all that. So, and we're expanding even this year. We're going to museums. We're starting a museum tour where we're traveling around. We're actually going to Hawaii. So the Pacific Aviation Museum on Ford Island is hosting the Liberty Jump Team weekend. So they just restored a C-47. It is a static display, but we're going to take the visitors and have them go through a mock jump run with the jump master giving commands. And we're going to start this year where we go all over America doing that very same thing with all these different museums that have C-47s.
How surreal was it for you guys the first time you jumped on those battlefields during the anniversary? I mean, I just couldn't even imagine. It's one thing, it's cool as hell, and it's got to be surreal just to jump out of those C-47s in full uniform and kit, but to actually jump in the same areas, in the same airspace, or the same towns. It
is very emotional. When you go to Angleville All Plain, the two medics were in the church, and they were caring for wounded paratroopers and the Germans. If you go into the church, there's still damage from World War II, and the pews, the church pews, are still stained with blood. And so when you walk in there and you think about this, it becomes really emotional, because it's so powerful to think, oh my goodness, I just jumped on the exact same drop zone that they dropped on. I've moved to that location, and now here I am. And it's really emotional. It was the same thing in all these drop zones, to think about what happened there and what we're doing to commemorate that stuff. It's very emotional.
This a little weird question, but how's the development in those areas? Are a lot of those smaller villages and hamlets, are they still underdeveloped? Or are they pretty much, a lot of it's so overdeveloped now that you really can't see a lot of the old landmarks?
Yeah, actually, most of it is very similar to what it was in 44, which is absolutely amazing, especially Angleville. Now there are some new homes and all, sure, and that kind of stuff, but it's not very well developed there in Normandy. Normandy is a very small area when it comes to small villages and all that, and it just it hasn't grown that much. So you can walk through St. Mary-Glise and take a booklet of old photos, and you can go to all these different buildings and locations and match them up perfectly. That's how awesome it is.
Wow. That's cool. So you had mentioned you've got something like a couple hundred members of Liberty Jump Team now, correct?
Yes, we have a couple hundred members from all over the world. So we have a European president and a North American president. We have people from the Czech Republic. We actually just hosted our basic airborne course. So if you are not a military airborne jumper, we actually have a jump course for you in Corsicana, Texas. And so what ends up happening is we actually had 2 people from England come out to this, and we had one from Paris, France come out to it recently. And basically we go through a week-long process of teaching you everything, the equipment, how to use it, all of that. After you do all your ground school, then basically what happens is we put you up in a Cessna. We want to make sure that you're comfortable jumping out of an airplane. We put you up in a Cessna. If you can make that jump, then we put you in a C-47 and you jump out of a C-47. So we just hosted school. So we're getting people from everywhere, all over the world, come and join us.
You know,
That's outstanding.
I used to be brave and think, oh, I could jump. When I was a teenager, I want to go skydiving. And about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I had some friends down here from New Jersey, like, let's all go skydiving. And I'm thinking, I'm older now. I got a business. I got 2 kids. And all of a sudden, my bravado went out the window. And I was at an event down here, and there was another jump crew down here, and they were doing some training, and some of the reenactors were talking about it. And I'm like, that's something I really, really want to do, but there's just, I don't know, something in me, I just don't know if I would be able to make that jump. I would love to sit here and be, I could do it, but I don't think it's the scary part of me. I don't know. I have so much respect for the guys who do it, and I would love to think I could do it. I got the uniform, I got all the gear, but I just got to get over that little, all the people depending on me thing, because what if? But the what ifs never happen. Well, knock on wood, they never happen. So I would love to do something like that, but it would just take a little extra psyching up on my end just to get over that little hesitant hump.
Most people are afraid of heights, but you know what? If you drove to the grocery store today, you are more at risk driving to the grocery store than you are jumping out of an airplane. And the equipment that we have is super reliable. We have an impeccable safety record. And you just have to get over that fear of the height. And that's what it is most people look out the window and go, oh my goodness, this is a really long fall. But in reality, once you're out, it is it's very loud on the plane.
Sure.
Incredibly loud.
Scott, so what altitude are you guys jumping at usually?
Right about 1,500 feet.
That's what I thought. I mean, that's an ignorant question, but I never did airborne, so.
Yeah, about 50. And so you can adjust that 1,250 to 1,500, but it's usually 1,500. FAA will want us to be at 1,500. And so regular skydivers that come out with us are like, oh man, that is way too low. I don't like that. But they're used to jumping from quite a bit higher, doing the free fall and pulling when they want, where we're doing military static line. So basically, you're out the door, you're starting to count to your 4, and usually right about 3, you start to feel the parachute open, and then at 4, it's full canopy. You're going to look up, and you're going to make sure you have a good canopy, and then it's quiet, and you get to just fly, and it's the coolest thing ever. It really is. When you get down to landing, the thing about landing is, if you stood on a 3-foot desk with the parachutes that we use, which I have a set 10, other guys we have a bunch of Rangers and SF guys that jump with us. We even Delta Force guys that jump with us. A lot of them use the SF-10. Our students use the MC-1-1 Delta, semi-steerable. They're all semi-steerable, but the way these parachutes are designed, to just jump off a 3-foot table or something, and that's pretty much what you have. The feeling when you land.
I don't want to gloss over you're talking about how safe it is, and I'm sure it is. So I know we kind of cut you off in the middle of your safety thing. So if you wanted to go back and finish that, that's perfectly okay.
No, it is very safe. It is incredibly safe. I mean, the chutes are open. They're designed to open. They really are designed to open. And by chance, if there was some type of an accident,
there's
you have
redundancy.
a MERPS reserve. The old reserves you'd pull and you'd have to feed out the parachute.
Wow, I didn't know that.
These parachutes nowadays have a spring-loaded assist. So the minute you pull, The spring ejects the canopy out to catch the air, which inflates it that much quicker, so you're not falling that much further. But I've been doing this with this team now for 9 years, and I've never seen anybody pull a reserve.
It's funny. It's just it's one of those irrational fears, and you're sitting here talking about how safe it is, and I know it's safe, and I'm thinking, hey Don, you just spent 11 hours on Friday in a kayak in a 1.5 inch of water and you saw 8 alligators that day. 2 of them were 12 footers by your canal. Most people would say you're crazy for being out on Lake Okeechobee in a kayak with alligators. And so it's just one of those just irrational fears that I just have to get over. But I honestly, I've been thinking about for 3 years. I really want to do one of these. I might have to head out to Texas sometime and take you guys up on one of your classes.
Yeah, that is great. You can come out. I'll send you a schedule. We're gonna have a couple events. We're looking at possibly having another basic airborne course in October. If you don't want to jump, come out and just check us out. See what we're all about. Everybody talks about the airborne brotherhood and sisterhood, because we have a lot of females that jump with us too. But I look at the Liberty Jump Team this way. It's a family.
Yeah.
I have met some of the best people I've ever met in my life through the Liberty Jump Team. And come out and just check us out. And I have a feeling once you see what we're all about and you get comfortable with it, you're going to say, okay, I want to do this.
I'm sure.
And then you're in and you're hooked.
And that's one of the cool things about having a community with shared interests is that brotherhood you're talking about. Anytime, that's me and Jeff are both living historians and reenactors, and that's one of our favorite things about the hobby. Not only do we get to share the history with the community, but it's just being around like-minded people who share the same passion, whether it's World War II history, jumping out of planes, or whatever it may be. A lot of people don't have that luxury to be able to go away for a weekend and be around 20, 30, 40 people with the same interest. Most people, if they're lucky, have 4 or 5 guys they can hang out with, but to have a whole crew like that, it is just such a privilege. Yes,
exactly. And Jeff would know this too, because I know he was in the Army. When you're in the military and you're pushed to danger, it builds a bond that's absolutely incredible. And the guys that I went through boot camp with and served with, my goodness, man, I'm going to date myself here. That was like 38 years ago. But the thing is I'm still great buddies with those guys. And I maybe haven't talked to 1 or 2 of them for 10 years, but the first time we talk to each other, it's like we've never missed a day because of that bond. And that's exactly what happens here. We're doing something that's kind of dangerous, and the bond that we build with each other is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. Just, what was there, 6 or 7 of you guys here that day at the air show? And I could feel it. I could see the camaraderie that you guys had just in the way you guys were presenting, and just your setting up and tearing down everything, and your display looked so professional. I wish I took more pictures. I wish I had more time to take pictures of your display. Trust me, I got some ideas for in here now because of you guys. But and you had mentioned too. So talk a little bit about once you guys land, that welcoming committee that you guys receive when you're on the ground there.
When we go to France, Normandy is a very unique place. So when you're in France and you make a jump in, let's say, Angoville-Alpine, and you land on the actual DZ, the entire town is there to meet you. And when they meet you, they have sandwiches, jambon and fromage, ham and cheese sandwiches on a baguette, and they have beer for you, and they have calvados. And even though you can't talk, it's hard to communicate if you can't speak French. I have a couple little words that I know, but they just want to hug you and they want to talk to you, and they're talking to you, and you're like, yeah, okay. And they have pictures, and it's like that everywhere. And when we jump in at Lafayette, there's probably 10,000 people waiting for us, and we go down the line, and it's just, hey, American paratrooper, American, come. And I've made some friends over there where I just made a jump, and they're like, hey, come to the house for food, and I go over there, and they have food for us, and calvados and beer, and it's just an absolutely incredible time. It is the most incredible time.
Yeah, and when you first told me that, it gave me a different perspective because, of course, us as American reenactors, we don't really, our civilian population, of course, was not at any real risk during the war.
Yeah.
So when we're when we're keeping history alive from the American standpoint, it's from the American warrior, somebody who served in the military. Whereas when you were telling me that, it was almost like these people, they're bringing the history alive. They're probably remembering stories that were told to them from probably their grandparents, who, as civilians living through the invasion of Fortress Europa and all of the Nazi occupation that they had to deal with prior to that. That's a whole nother level of bringing that history alive. And it's so neat to me just to think that from the civilian perspective, the appreciation that they show for you guys keeping it alive, because it does just as much to honor the paratroopers as it does to honor their, the generation that came before them, of their family, just as civilians caught up in the middle of the greatest conflict in human history. So that was really interesting to hear about that.
Yeah, I'll give you another example of something that's absolutely incredible. In 2019, I went to go look at all the C-47 crash sites, and I wanted to go see where these paratroopers had lost their life, and just basically go there and you have a beer, or you pour them a beer and just remember them. And we pulled up to this house, and I kind of pulled by the driveway, and the guy runs out and he's talking to me in French, and I said I didn't know, so I made a gesture like airplane crash, and he goes, "Oh yeah, come." He took me into the backfield where a C-47 crashed and all these paratroopers were killed. Nothing grows there on his farm where this crash was, because of the oils and other things that came out of the C-47 when it caught on fire, when it crashed. And he says, right here. And then he gestured, and he told me how they took a tractor and they pulled all the pieces over to this wood line. And then he says, come. And we go into his barn, and inside his barn, he had a huge box of C-47 parts and things that he had picked up in his field. And then I said, well, thank you very much. And he says, no, come. We sit down at his picnic table. Next thing you know, he's got cider for us and Calvados. And, he's like, he wrote down his email, and he says, hey, send. And I said, okay, I'll send you an email. And then we went back the next day, and we gave him a huge framed picture of a C-47 with a paratrooper jumping out of it. And he basically says, wall, house. I said, yes, please hang it in your house. And so the next time I go back to Normandy, I'm going to go back and visit him and all that. And that's how these people are. They absolutely love you in Normandy. They absolutely do.
Well, coming off of what Jeff said, it's no obviously disrespect to our veterans, but it's truly, it's the history of our men and women who fought in World War II, but it's their history. I mean, it's their land, it's their people, and it was their ancestors that we helped and provided contribution to prevent them from, being under control of Germany for longer than they were. So when it comes to history, that area, that particular part of the war, that campaign is in fact their history to the truest, form of the word. And so, and I was thinking when you're talking about landing, how you don't speak the language and they're bringing out food, that just makes it more authentic, because most of our guys didn't speak the language either. So you got to experience what they experienced when they landed.
Yes, exactly. It is the greatest honor. And after the first time I went, and I realized that they were giving us things, little trinkets. I fill my pockets full of patches, and I have Liberty Jump Team these little rubber wristbands. And when the kids run up, we take patches off our uniforms and give them patches, or we give them these wristbands, we give them coins and other various things. They go absolutely bonkers for it. They just love it. So it is the greatest experience. And again, if you wanted to do that and you didn't want to be a jumper, it doesn't matter, because our team runs the drop zone too. So we have our non-jumping team members that run the drop zone. So our entire team is involved. And just to kind of give you an idea, one of our lead jump masters lost his leg in Vietnam. And so he jumps with an artificial leg. He's in his early 70s, and he still jumps with us. Our oldest jumper is 82, and he has something to the effect of 1,500 jumps. So, it's quite the deal. It really is.
That's outstanding. Golly.
Yeah. Well, so it can be done. It's a good time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, again, thank you for what you're doing over there for all of us that just love the history and love World War II. I mean, to have you guys as kind of an extension of us as reenactors that are just kind of probably going to stay stateside and not jump out of an airplane. It's awesome. We appreciate what you're doing. So I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. So we've been talking, European theater. So I'd like to talk Pacific theater a little bit. Scott, you and I had a great phone call that one night. That the stuff that you were telling me about with the videography, the photography, that I guess that's more of your hobby. I can't wait. And I don't know if Henry is already aware of some of this that you do or not, but man, talk a little bit or a lot about what we talked about and some of the stuff that you found. Particularly, I remember with Bordelon, right? Was it Bordelon that on Tarawa?
So Bonnyman's bunker and that kind of stuff, and
Sandy Bonnyman. That's it.
I'll go back a little bit further. So, when I was a kid growing up, well, me and my mom lived in Virginia, and Baba Black Sheep was going on. It was a new TV show, and I was running around doing the newspaper, and this old gentleman came to me and he said, "What's your hurry, boy?" And I said, "Well, sir, I got to get home. Pappy Boyington's going to be on TV." And so he says, "You stop by here the next day, and I have something for you." So he gave me a book, and I still have this book. And that started me on this process of really getting into military history. And so I started buying books, and I probably have 1,500 books here in my library on World War II. And I started to focus on Pearl Harbor, and that became my absolute, that was really what drove me. And what was upsetting was every book that I bought had the same photograph. And every documentary I watched always had the same film clips. And so I was like, I don't get it. Yeah, there has to be thousands of photographs out there. So I decided to do a documentary. I was getting tired of documentaries. It wasn't the way I liked them. And so what ended up happening is I decided, I'm self-taught. I don't know anything about video production, anything like that. And so I basically taught myself how to make documentaries. And my first production was Pearl Harbor Revisited, the USS Utah, USS Arizona. And I started traveling around America. And in those travels, I ended up meeting about 80 Pearl Harbor survivors. And when I say Pearl Harbor survivors, if you were at Wheeler, you're considered a Pearl Harbor survivor. If you're at Bellows. And so basically I interviewed John Finn. I went to John Finn's house. That guy was absolutely phenomenal. Spent the whole day with him. And so I got all these interviews, and I started to realize I wanted to look at these films. And when you call the National Archives, there's a person there that basically says, "Would you like me to look for stuff?" Well, they have a book. And what they do is they go through this book and they say, "Hey, pull film roll, this, and this," and they send you this generic bundle. So when I did it, I went and I said, "No, I'm not going to take the standard stuff. I have hours of Pearl Harbor footage that you've never seen in any documentary." And that led me to finding this blip on this film. And I kept thinking, what is this blip? So film, when you run it through a computer, runs at 30 frames per second. So I found this little blip. And so I slowed it down and I ran it so that I could look at each frame in the second. And what I actually found was the Arizona explosion filmed from a Japanese airplane. So what I did is I took one of those frames and I sent it to Hawaii, and they authenticated it. Yes, this is real film footage. I slowed it down, let it run for 5 seconds because it was only half a second. They flew me out to Hawaii. We had a huge press conference because now new footage was being found. And so I was like, okay, I'm onto something here, because I had all of these true films of Pearl Harbor. I didn't take a ship explosion from Okinawa and put it in a Pearl Harbor documentary. I used only authentic stuff, photographs and all this. And so my second production was Pearl Harbor, the Real Story. The National Park Service ended up taking it and they sold it in their bookstore for many, many years. And now the streaming services have kind of taken over, so nobody buys a Blu-ray. So it's actually on Amazon Prime.
Nice.
But that led me to if I could find something like that, what else could I find? And so I went back to the archives and I collected probably 20 hours of Iwo Jima footage. I collected probably about 900 Iwo Jima images. I did the same thing for Tarawa. And when we talk about Tarawa, I met Clay Bonnyman Evans. So he's the grandson of Lieutenant Bonnyman, who is famous for the bunker attack. And he only had one photograph. And so what I did is I started going through all these photographs and I'm like, okay, I see a palm tree that's bent at a certain angle. And I used that as my reference point to find other photographs. Well, then I ended up finding probably 6 photographs of Bonnyman sitting in this foxhole talking to people. The story about Bonnyman, if you read some of these accounts, is he was killed very early once he got to the top of the bunker. Well, going through all these films and looking at all this stuff, I was able to prove that no, he actually was alive for quite a long time. Wow. Until he went onto the other side of the bunker. And so I put together this very detailed, using photographs, films, I put it all together to lay out a complete timeline of the Bonnyman bunker attack on Tarawa, to show where Bonnyman was at all times, what he was doing, who he was with, and all of that. And so I posted that on my YouTube page, and it's been reviewed by quite a few people. And I think Clay Bonnyman Evans even made some comments about that was really good work. So I'm totally into taking these photographs and doing that kind of work with them to find and tell a story using the photographs and how they move, how troops moved and all that kind of stuff. So
now let me pause real quick. This is crazy because we didn't do an episode last week. Something came up. Henry's on vacation. I had something going on. And so I posted a redeployment episode. And I was going to do one that I've been thinking about doing for a while, which was an interview I did with some of the guys who run the Springfield Armory site. It's a great interview I did a few years back. Now, Jeff did not talk to me about this conversation you and he had about the Bonnyman stuff. For some reason, at the last minute, I did not post a Springfield Armory interview. I reposted the interview I did with Clay Bonnyman Evans about his book, Bones with My Grandfather. So our new listeners just heard the episode last week that I posted with myself and Clay Bonnyman Evans. And now here we are the very next week following up with you talking about that, which is very cool.
This was all part of the plan. We're very organized that way.
And, you were talking about earlier about how surreal it was jumping out of C-47s over those landings. Now, Clay Bonnyman Evans has been down there at Tarawa. He was actually there when they, was there within a week from when they recovered his grandfather's bones. I had him on the podcast, and like 2 months later, he joined us at Fort Morgan, Alabama for the 75th anniversary Tarawa landings reenactment we did complete with landing crafts. And I got to be on the landing craft with him, and I have a selfie I took, and he's behind me, and you can just see his face. He's staring out at the horizon. He's not thinking about what we're doing a reenactment. And you can just tell he's in the uniform. We provided him with the uniform. He's on the landing craft. He's got a rifle. The water's splashing on us. I am sure all the information he's done on his grandfather, all the trips down there, and now he gets to put that little bit more, and probably had that same sense you have. Obviously, he's not in Tarawa, but here he is on a landing craft, out in the water, bumping up and down, surrounded by guys in full Marine Corps uniforms and gear. And I'm sure he got to share a little bit of that same experience you do every time you jump out of those planes.
Yeah, funny you should say that. I was there, and I actually took photos of, I probably posted about 300 photographs of that event. And because I knew Clay was going to be there, that's why I drove out there from Texas to meet him. I got his book, had him autograph and all that. But I was there at that exact same event. I was when the landing craft landed there on the shore. I was kind of in an area on the beach snapping photos of everybody.
So now you got to go through your footage.
Investigation of where Don is.
I was on the second landing, so I'll be the 6'5" guy on the left-hand side, stage right, fourth guy back during the second landing.
The tree with the angle in it.
So yeah, I was the tall guy in the second landing. And the funny thing is, when I got on the beach, the third landing came in, and by then the ramp was nice and wet, and I forget who was carrying it, but the guy carrying the 30 cal machine gun slipped and went ass over tea kettle right into the water, just like the real thing. But that was such a great event. It's just surreal to know that you were there too, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I travel America to all these events because I enjoy it. I truly enjoy it. I want to see what other people are doing. You know, and I try to get them involved with us also. So I like doing it. That's what I like. I really enjoy it.
So why do you think it took you to uncover all of this footage? Why all of these big time documentaries? Why is it an expense? Is it a time frame issue? I mean, not to take away from your effort, but you know, average Joe in a way, you're self-taught, and you have these big time documentary production teams putting these things together that run for 20 years on TV. I mean, what was the secret? Why do you think that is, that you found all this stuff that was right there in the archives?
Because to put it really simple, it's my passion. If you're going to tell a story, you have to be passionate about it. And if you're not, you cut corners. And you have to ask yourself, does the guy in Los Angeles that has a production company that is required to get
That's exactly what I was
20
going to say.
documentaries done in a year, do you think he cares about the veterans? Do you think he cares about really what the event's all about? No, he needs to get 20 documentaries made so that he can make and pay his bills. I make documentaries as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I give them to people. I don't care if I make money. It's my passion. I want you to know what the real story is and what really happened. And that's why I do it. And, you know, I have been lucky with some of the stuff. Again, I'm not a professional. It's just me. I do all my own research. I write my own script. You know, you can go on my YouTube page and watch my Iwo Jima documentary. I'll give you a little insight on that one. It's kind of comical. A buddy of mine from work is my narrator. You know, what I did is I went around and I listened to different people at work, and I'm like, hey, you sound like you could be in this documentary. He did the narration for me. I went out for sushi one night, and I met the sushi chef, and I said, hey, you want to read something for me? And so the dude that I had sushi with at a restaurant did the Japanese portion for me in my documentary. And that's because I do it all. I do my own animations. I'm not an animator, so my maps are basic, but I do everything. I do absolutely everything. I go to do the interviews. I do all the editing, the script writing. I do the animated maps that I have in my documentaries. I do get footage sometimes from DVIDs, which is the Department of Defense video system. And I get films from the National Archives as long as they're public domain military, because then you don't have to pay for that stuff. Because then I turn around and I give it away. Like I said, you can go on YouTube and watch the bunker attack from Tarawa. I want you to understand what happened. You can go and watch my Iwo Jima documentary on YouTube, because I want you to understand what happened on Iwo Jima. And I will say one thing with the Iwo Jima. I did have somebody contact me from a network and said, hey, send me a copy. So I did. I sent them a copy, and they said, no, you send me the high def copy. And I'm like, well, I sent you the best copy I have. And they're like, well, aren't you a studio? And I said, no, I'm just one dude. And they're like, well, don't you film in high def? And I'm like, well, no, I can't afford it. You know, I basically, at the time I had a little home Sony camera is what I was doing stuff with. And they said, hey, once you upgrade, let us know, and we will start. Let's work together, because your style is completely different than anybody else's style that we know. So we've upgraded to all 4K, and we want to start doing more and more stuff and all that. So, yeah.
Well, I would like to nominate Henry to do some VO work for you.
What's that?
I said I'd like to nominate Henry to do some VO work for you on your next documentary.
Yeah, I've actually called Henry and we talked on the phone. I said, yeah, we'll have to do that. So I want to go to Peleliu with him. I think I've posted on my Facebook business page 600, 700 Peleliu photos. You know, get them out there. Let people look at them.
You know,
I love it.
Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, Henry.
No, I was going to say, just in response to what you said about your passion, and that's what I was really hoping. I knew you were going to say that, and so this is really now for our listeners right now. question what you're seeing, question what you're watching, because, we tend to, some folks say, oh, I saw a movie, they must have done their research, or it wasn't even a movie. This was a documentary. This wasn't a movie. This was really meant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly the full story, or that's exactly what happened, because, the more you do the research, the really, for me, the more I found out I didn't know, because I took everything from a documentary perspective, or, oh, I read it in a book, it must be true. And of course, now in the age of the internet, everybody's knowledge is a mile wide with Google, but about that thick of actual information and knowledge to back it up. So, question it. And Scott, you are just an absolute gem to the World War II community, to the reenacting community. You're such a patriot. It is just incredible. I'm still waiting by my mailbox for some of your DVDs.
Yeah, I took off. I'm going to send you those DVDs so you can use them in the store to sell and make money for the museum. I had to take off and get to school because our students were coming in, and so I wasn't able to get the mailbox. But yes, I am sending you a box of DVDs to sell to raise money for the museum.
Before we get the Henry statement, I just want to trace off of what Jeff said about passion, and how you were able to find this stuff because your passion versus the publishing house. And that's kind of the same way a lot of this stuff happens. What was it, like 5-6 years ago? The guy had the ruptured appendix, and he was laid up in his house after surgery, and he was looking through different books and photos, and he's the one who kind of discovered the whole Iwo Jima thing. Like, oh, wait a minute, the flag raising, there's that, there's a misidentification there. And that came from somebody who was laid up in his bed, who was a history buff, who was reading different books that he had read multiple times, but since he was laid up, he read one, and he was looking at the photos like, wait a minute, that's kind of how he figured out is basically the equipment on the uniform and how it wasn't in the photo of the Iwo Jima, but that person was wearing it and vice versa. And so, yeah, it's just through passion and sometimes just happenstance.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the dedication to really focus really leads you to new discoveries, and that's what's important.
Now, what are you going to say, Henry?
No, I was just going to put in a plug for what Scott does, because he sent me some archival photos or archival film on Peleliu that I'd never seen before. And that was right around the time you and I talked on the phone, Scott. And some of that, I've seen obviously every documentary on Peleliu that's ever been made, but to see, we share the same passion here, guys. So I'm hungry to see that other angle shot of the LVT coming in that, you can tell it's really close to the angle that you just saw or have seen in every documentary for years. But here's that one that you didn't see. And you sent 2 or 3 clips, and it was really cool, Scott, because there was one, like at the 1:22 mark, there's a guy, and it wasn't, but I swear it could have been my dad. The dude was sitting there in a bunker with his helmet off. I even froze it and took a picture of it and sent it to my mom. I said, Mom, tell me that doesn't look like Dad. And she said, it kind of does, but your father had blonde hair. His hair's brown. That's not your dad. But it's still, I mean, it's just to see images of Peleliu that I've read so much about, and to see these images in film that I've never seen before. And it's just really cool. And so, I wish I could see every archival photo out there on Peleliu and Okinawa,
Well, not only is it monotonous and tiresome to see the same footage, but as a historical aspect, that secondary, thirdary footage that he finds, that's a lens of another photojournalist who was out there in the same danger, dealing with the same risk as the photojournalist whose content we've already seen. So by not showing their footage, it's kind of a disservice to them and their family members, because their family member was 20 yards away, probably on the same landing craft of the guy who shot the footage we've all seen at Nauseam. He's 15, 20 feet away, different angle. And for whatever reason, the content that he created in that same environment or that same danger just gets overlooked. And that's kind of an injustice in itself.
It is amazing. I sat with Norm Hatch in his basement. His entire basement was like an office of photographs and films. And, he talks about his crew that was on Iwo Jima and how they filmed so much. And what most people don't know either is, so Tarawa, half the footage of Tarawa is in color, half is in black and white, because the government was testing color cameras. But Norma was telling me that after Tarawa, basically the United States government filmed everything in color. To duplicate it, to send it to theaters, Movie Tone News or whatever that was, they would duplicate it in black and white. Well, what ends up happening is if they didn't preserve the color film correctly, you're only left with the black and white. So technically, after Tarawa, everything should have been filmed in color. So all Iwo Jima film footage should all be in color, but the majority of it's in black and white, and the color reels have been lost to wherever, or they've turned the sepia tone red or whatever. So, each one of these islands had numerous people taking photographs, taking films, and you only see certain bits of it. Now, I will be honest, when you go to the National Archives and you do pull reels, some of it is too graphic to allow anybody to see. And so
Really?
I don't allow anybody to see that. It doesn't go into any of my documentaries. So there's a lot of stuff there. You just have to go and sit and my brain is slipping right now. K38, right?
K35.
Is that it, right, Henry?
My dad was K35,
Thought K35.
5th Marines.
Yeah, I was right. Okay, K35. My brain was slipping.
Well, 8th
So when I
Marines
look
was at Tarawa, so
Yeah, so when I was looking for his film footage, that's what I ran through the Department of Defense, and I ran it through some other stuff, and that's how I came up with K35's footage to send him and to see if he could look for his dad. And so you can find that footage. You just have to know how to search for it and all that. And they put stuff in different categories. So the Marines took photographs, the Navy had photographers. So you have to know to go to these different sources to get these documents and photographs. But once you find it, it is mind-boggling.
Hey, Scott, just to swing over real quick. My brother sent me a video that I think if you haven't seen, you may be interested in just because you're dealing with old photographs and video footage. There's an interesting video, little 15, 20-minute explanation. It's called How Kodak Exposed the Atomic Bomb. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
Basically, when we were doing the nuclear bomb testing out in Nevada, obviously the government and the Department of Defense was keeping it on the hush-hush. Well, Kodak had started finding specks in their undeveloped paper. And they were like, well, where's these specks coming from? And because they had found previously that whenever we had used radium to make our glow-in-the-dark watch faces and the instruments for the planes, sometimes that radium would seep through and affect the photo paper. Long story short, this guy does a great 15-minute explanation of how Kodak and one of their physicists figured out that the fallout that came from the Nevada testing site got into the air system and the Kodak manufacturing plant in Indiana, and the nuclear particles was affecting their light-sensitive paper. And it got to the point where from 1948, whenever we did that testing, all the way up to like 1965, the government had a hush-hush agreement with the Kodak and other film manufacturing plants that they would let them know when we were going to do outdoor nuclear testing so that they wouldn't produce any film in that day. And then when that came out later in the future, like, people were upset that, so you guys had this agreement with Kodak and these film manufacturing, but not with the general public to be worried about nuclear fallout. But it's a great little 15-minute video. I suggest you guys check it out if you're interested in that. But it's called How Kodak Exposed the Nuclear Test. They figured out what was going on basically by X-ray photo paper being corrupted. It's a crazy little story how, so we did have nuclear fallout all through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they're talking about how they can actually predate skeletons throughout the world by pre-nuclear testing versus post-nuclear testing, because all of us have so much nuclear fallout in our bones. And so they can actually, and they're saying basically wine that you buy that was manufactured pre-1943 is completely different because of the same fallout they got into fruit. So it's a pretty interesting little documentary.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That is interesting.
So, you got any future documentaries you're planning on doing, or any future works, or are you just primarily focusing on the Liberty Jump Team right now?
Well, it's not quite the military, but right now we're wrapping up a Kent State documentary.
Interesting.
When you listen to people talk about Kent State, everybody has these conspiracy theories, this, that, and again, I took about 2 years, and I collected probably 500 photographs. I've collected, I think, 4 8mm films that were the student was filming on May 4th that basically have never been seen before. And so we've kind of analyzed the sequence of photos and put them into this documentary. So you actually see the troop movements, where they went, how they went there, why they went there. You can see the students. You can see the students throwing rocks, sticks, and the movement back and what led to that. And, there's always these conspiracies in regards to this. And when you look at the photographs and the films, you can say, okay, that doesn't quite match what the conspiracy is. So we can put that conspiracy to bed, and it's done.
For the sake of our younger audience who's listening to this tomorrow, scratching their head saying, what happened at Kent State? Let's just bring them up to speed a little bit. If you want to give a little background of what happened at Kent State and why the Army was there and so forth.
So basically at Kent State, on April 30th, 1970, President Nixon announced the Cambodian incursion, and that set off a bunch of protests at college campuses all around America. And at Kent State, they started to have their protest. And it got to the point where they actually burned down the ROTC building, which was on campus. The mayor of Kent decided that he needed to take action, so he contacted the governor. The governor brought in the National Guard. The National Guard basically was there to protect the campus and the city. And there's a lot of issues with that, and basically what ended up happening is they made a determination that they were not going to have a rally on Monday. And how this rally got planned for Monday, May 4th, is on May 1st, the history students at Kent State had a meeting at the Victory Bell where they buried the Constitution because Nixon's actions had violated the Constitution. And so they buried the Constitution, but the kids, Kent State is a commuter college, so kids were leaving. So they said, hey, let's finish this up, or let's talk about it again, about the Constitution on Monday, May 4th. The kids start to show up. The kids are coming back to the campus. They see all these National Guardsmen. They're like, what's going on? And they're watching what all these National Guardsmen are doing. In reality, hardly any of the students were really protesting. There was a small group that were protesting. Most of them were just watching. And the National Guard became kind of concerned with all these students, and they decided to fire tear gas on them to disperse them. And it just went from there. It went to chaos, and you have 4 students killed. 2 of them had nothing to do with the protest in any way, shape, or form. One of them was actually at Kent State on an ROTC scholarship, and he was killed, and 9 kids were wounded. So a pretty devastating thing where armed troops with M1 Garand rifles fire on students. So it's an interesting story. No documentaries have been done on it in probably the last 8 years. So I thought, let's give it a shot and see what happens. But other than that, I in August I'm going to Guadalcanal, and then I am going to Tarawa. So I will be going to Guadalcanal to get a little bit of an idea about some filming there, and I'm going to go to Tarawa, same thing, to see if I can get some ideas for filming there.
I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to come up with ideas. I'm sure you'll be inundated with thoughts and different things.
Yes, that's for sure. Tarawa is a little bit overpopulated right now, so they have a lot of issues there. It will be very hard to pick up what the battlefield looked like. Very few of the things are there. The shoreline has changed slightly. So it will just be good to see Bonnyman's bunker. It's exposed now. There's no sand on it, and the command bunkers, and just kind of walk the beach. So I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Well, I hope wherever you end up in the world, you and I are going to be communicating quite a bit. When I know you met RT over the weekend and his idea for a movie about Pathfinder. So you and I are going to be hopefully working together on that to make sure that thing comes through to fruition, because that's an incredible story, and there's no better person to bring on board than you on some of that. So, well, guys, I don't have any kind of a book review, but I can tell you I watched The Memphis Belle a couple nights ago because it never gets old, and it's like the best war movie ever.
The original or the remake?
Oh, the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, not the documentary. Yeah.
Real quick, if people were interested in, becoming a member of the Liberty Jump team, or even looking into it, or just looking for more information, what website would they go to? What's your social media links, etc.?
So you can go to our social media, Liberty Jump Team. We actually have 2 pages on Facebook. There's Liberty Jump Team, which is our main page. And then another organization wanted to help us out, so they started Liberty Jump Team INC, Liberty Jump Team Inc. So there's 2 pages. I mainly post to the standard one, Liberty Jump Team. There's about 5,600 people that are there. We have an Instagram page that we're starting to build on. We have a Twitter page that we're trying to build. And we're starting to develop our YouTube page, our Liberty Jump Team YouTube page. Or you can look us up online, Liberty Jump Team. When you do ask for information, I'm the one that emails it to you. We have packets that we put all together so you can see exactly what we do, why we do it, what our mission statement is, and all that.
And as always, you guys can head over to WTSPWorldWar2.com, find the page for this episode, and find all the links there as well. I do want to say, don't sleep on TikTok. I know it's new, but there are huge World War II, especially these younger kids, have a thirst for it. There's a guy out of California. His name slips me right now. I had him on a few months back, and he works in a museum, and he just shows his Jeeps and the deuce and a halves, and he gets a ton of traffic. So if you guys are going down that social media, I'm sure your videos would blow up, especially from the inside of the C-47s. You get guys in full uniform. So, you're in a video. TikTok's nothing more than 1-minute video, so don't sleep on that. You guys can probably get a lot of attention down that channel too.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Henry, you got any plugs? Any events coming up, sir?
No. While I was on vacation, I did have a lovely conversation with Dan Carlin a few days ago, as you guys know. So, really good conversation. He'll be coming on in May.
Which, by the way, not to cut you off, I just reminded me, things are growing here so quickly at the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. We went from having one guest every 2 to 3 weeks. We are now booked up through May 16th. So, as I said at the beginning of last week's redeployment episode, don't worry. We have fresh episodes coming up every week. We are now booked up through May. So, things are growing here, and our guest list is getting huge, and which is awesome. So, for those of you guys listening, for those new listeners, keep on listening, because we got a lot more guests coming our way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really all I'm going to throw out there for this one.
What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, well, while we're talking about guests, just to kind of whet people's appetite, we've got a friend of mine that lives in Culver City, California, that is basically the West Coast's Douglas MacArthur. He is an incredible MacArthur reenactor that's going to be coming on.
I'm starting to see a theme here, aren't you, Henry? First he's hanging out with Pat, and now he's got a MacArthur guy.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a theme here.
He's going to have Roosevelt coming on.
Well, actually, I was just going to say that he also does a great Roosevelt, and his wife does a great Eleanor. But he's more known for his MacArthur. I mean, he does a great, and I think he's got stuff all over YouTube as well. But he's come in to do some stuff with me here in Texas. We've done stuff. In fact, last time I saw him was at the Wings Over Dallas Air Show. I guess that was maybe 2019, somewhere in there. They were kind of doing a big anniversary to the mainly the Pacific Theater. So if you're familiar with that famous picture of MacArthur inside of a B-17 kind of pointing out, like this out of a waist gun window.
Yeah.
We kind of reenacted that photo and things like that. And then, of course, we've got a gal coming on from Operation Meatball, which if you're not familiar with Operation Meatball, get familiar with it, because she travels with World War II vets all over the world. I was lucky to have her at the air show a couple weeks ago. I think she brought 7 or 8 World War II veterans just from the San Antonio area. And I mean, it was just what a pleasure it was to be able to talk with some of those guys. And I think when we do the podcast, she'll be in the Netherlands
Nice.
when we do it. So yeah, a lot of great stuff. And then the only other thing is
Jeff comes home in late 2023 from working on his Pathfinder project. Hey guys, I got this guy who does a perfect Churchill.
right, yeah.
Got him booked. His trifecta is
But
complete.
so this more of a local event. This coming Saturday is a local festival here in town. They've been doing it for about 40 years. And I've been involved in the parade quite a bit since I got back from the war. We've always had a Humvee or something for me to ride in. And this year, just, because of the impact that we had at this last air show, they asked my very own living history unit here, Company B, to be the Grand Marshal of the parade, which is just such a cool honor. So we're going to be bringing in some military vehicles from all eras, and we're going to have our little convoy at the beginning of the parade this weekend. And then a little show and tell. Of course, this is only good for our video guests here, but behind me is sitting, and of course, Don and Henry are familiar with this, but this is a Philco radio that just kind of came across. Had a good friend of mine just sent me a screenshot and said, hey, this is right here down the road, and do you want it? I said, yeah, absolutely. And when I got it in the garage and I started cleaning it up, I plugged it in, it works. All the tubes lit up, which was really cool to see. And that's when I noticed in red grease pen on the back, there's a little inspection date, and it's dated 12/5/41.
Wow.
The Friday before the attack on Pearl. So what a neat piece. So I figured
Since
bring it into the museum here and let folks see it. It is something special.
since we're showing off our Philcos, I might as well show you my 38
There you go.
over there in the corner. That one I haven't plugged in because the power cord insulation is cracked and the wire's exposed. And so even though it wasn't error correct, I went on this this antique style electronics company's page and I ordered a cloth braided one. But when I went to replace it, I realized all that stuff is solid state. So that power wire, I would basically have to take out the whole inside to resolder it. And then I was looking online on collectors of that, and they're talking about how you need to upgrade the tubes and all that. So before I go down that road, I'm going to probably have to find a full radio restoration guy to handle that, because it's going to be more than me just soldering on a power cord, apparently.
Yeah. So that's one of my latest finds. And I just want to say before we wrap up again, Scott, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know you've been really busy. You've been traveling a lot. You got a lot going on. But really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, sharing your passion especially, and look forward to seeing you again and working with you. And maybe we get another episode or two out of you when you get back from your travels throughout the world this year.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great honor to be on here and talk to you guys about everything and all that. And I'll have to go see Henry there.
Yeah, absolutely.
My connection is my daughter's at Marion Military Institute, and that's where his dad went for a little bit. So I'm going to be going out there for her graduation and all that. So I'll have to stop by and see Henry.
Yeah, give me a call when you're in the area, man. We'll find a way to hook up for sure.
We'll do.
And if anybody's listening, the Red Wing Boots in Southwest Florida closed their doors during the pandemic, and my living history season has been cut short because after my Georgia event, my boots are about 6 to 7 years old, and on both of the inside of my insoles, the stitching has separated, so I got a gap in my sole of my boots, and I'm afraid if I do any more events, the sole will completely dissect and fall off. So I say all that to say this: anybody listening, if you know a good boot re-seamer, maybe Jeff knows a couple of guys out there in Texas, all the cowboy boots walking around, but I need a boot guy so I can get my Cochrane Air jump boots fixed so I can get back into my season, because I haven't done anything since Georgia because I don't want to blow my boots out. So it's been a short living history season for me. But yeah, problems are all around. But that's going to wrap it up. If you do know a boot guy, email us at mail@WTSPWorldWar2.com. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, also email us. We love the emails at WTSPWorldWar2.com. Thank you guys so much. And we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410 production.